Well, all right, you guys. Good morning. It's Saturday, June. I should have looked that up. Anyway, it's after June 19th on the Wednesday, so 2021. I guess it's the 22nd today. June 22nd, 2024. Gonna have some coffee with you, and we're gonna talk about Texas oil production. It's very hot here, so I'm sorry for my rather disheveled look, but it's really hot. And I don't know, this is supposed to be a luxury apartment, but the air conditioning is completely worthless. Everything in here is on the cheap, but hey, that's life. Okay, I want to talk about Torchlight / Nexbridge hydrocarbons. That is a March 2020 presentation. The Oro Grande acreage that they have may be the largest domestic onshore, I guess that's as opposed to Canada. It's the largest onshore new field discovery in over 30 years. And that is 4 years ago. I want to start by saying everything I say in here is in my opinion. It's not financial advice, not legal advice. And the other thing is, you really have to know that there's many a slip between cup and lip, particularly when you're dealing with oil and gas. So these are projections, not promises, and unfortunately we can't really know. The only way to know is to keep drilling. That's the magic. The secret to creating great wealth in the oil and gas space is to drill. Okay, so let me just show you, well, you can't see because I wrote on the back of that. Maybe that'll block it out a little bit. Yeah, it's a little bit better. Then I can't see. Anyway, here, I'm backwards. You can see the Midland, the Central Basin uplift, and the Delaware Basin on Texas. Here's another image of it. The Midland Basin. Okay. I've shown you this before. I'll do it quickly. Way back when is when all of this was formed. The Permian Basin. In the Permian Basin, you first had mass deposition, then you had continental collision, and then you had basin filling. Before the Permian Basin was formed, this region was a broad marine area called the Toboso Basin. During the Cambrian to Mississippian periods, 541 to 323 million years ago, massive amounts of clastic settlements, I believe clastic means clay, clastic settlements were deposited in this area, causing it to form a depression. What we define as the basin today began forming in the late Mississippian and early Pennsylvanian, 323 million to 299 million ago, when the supercontinents Laurasia and Gondwana, let's reunite Gondwana, collided to form Pangea, causing faulting and uplift. While the area was covered by a seaway, episodes of faulting, uplift, and erosion, as well as different rates of subsidence caused structural deformations in the larger Toboso Basin, and then divided it into separate basins. So anyway, that's what's happened. And it has nothing to do with the shorts. It doesn't matter that they tried to destroy Torchlight. They tried to destroy MMAT, and now they're trying to destroy Nexbridge. And I don't think they're going to be successful. And that's what I want to talk to you about. Here's another picture of it. The Delaware Basin is circled in green, and it's in the middle of this map. The Delaware Basin is to the west of the Central Basin Platform, and then the Midland Basin is to the east. Now you'll notice, I don't know what the Pedregosa Basin is, but you can see it. The Val Verde Basin, those are there. I don't know if they're being drilled at all or anything. But in orange is the Oro Grande Basin. This is to the west of the Delaware Basin. And what you'll notice is this period of deposition and then, I guess, accumulation. I don't know what the sea accumulated, just biomass and maybe Dino the dinosaur. That's where the oil is. So you got to ask yourself, do you feel lucky, punk? Well, do you? Midland Basin, Delaware Basin are massively productive for oil and gas. Just ask yourself, is there a chance the Oro Grande is going to be productive? In geologic time, that's called closeology, which I can't stand, that word. Cannot stand it. Cannot stand it at all. Now I want to show you Occidental Petroleum is Warren Buffett's 6th largest holding, Occidental Petroleum. You see that? I'll show it to you again in the green box. Okay, Occidental Petroleum's worldwide proved reserves totaled 4 billion barrels of oil. Proved 4 billion barrels of oil. Torchlight's presentation, low side, 2.3 billion barrels of oil recoverable. Middle, 3.7 billion barrels of oil recoverable, and high side, 5 billion barrels of oil recoverable. How is this possible? Well, that's the thing. Until it's drilled more robustly, if that's an English expression, until the drilling comes fast and furious, people are going to be skeptical of these numbers. Well, this matrix of low, medium, and high was based on 72.5% ownership on 134,000 acres held together, all contiguous. That is rare. That is very rare in the other two basins. May not be rare, I suppose, in the Oro Grande, but I think they have the honey spot here, and they have all the acreage. Well, they certainly have a lot of it. My guess is that the resource is contained within that acreage. Anyway, they're now up to 100% ownership, which is documented in the press releases Nexbridge has made. I have a question for you. If Nexbridge is increasing its ownership to 100% working interest, so remember, They pay 100% of the costs. It nets out. I haven't seen the leases. There will be an override probably to, since it's mostly university lands, it's probably just one override, but it's to all the landowners. That could be an eighth, could be 15%. I just don't know, but and then there'll probably be 1 or 2% in there, points in there for Masterson and the team. I don't know. So just as a ballpark, assume they pay 100% because they have 100% working interest, and they get 85% of the revenue. Just assume a 15% burden. That may or may not be correct. I don't know. Anyway, they drilled 6 pilot wells when it was torchlight. The wells flared, which means there's natural gas, and they produced. They didn't go into production, but they produced. So that's your first evidence that there is a resource there. Here's the press release. Nextbridge buys 100%. I'll just read the first sentence. The headline is Nextbridge Hydrocarbons, Inc. acquires remaining working interest in the Oro Grande project. This was as of May 16th, 2023. Nextbridge now owns 100% of the working interest in the Oro Grande project. So they did the merger, and there's they name a bunch of the various LLCs that owned it and merged in. So they acquired the remaining, essentially, the 10.875% working interest. Now, Nextbridge owns and operates its entire land position in the Oro Grande project with 100% working interest across 134,000 contiguous block acres. They had to issue 27 million shares to acquire all of that. So I don't know how to calculate that. But remember what this shows. This company is keenly intent on moving forward. It's like a relationship. It's like a shark. It's got to keep moving forward. So we've been in a battle with Congress, journalists, the Twitterati, and with the brokerage firms via the legal system. But the company's best path to creating value for you and for themselves is to move forward with drilling. Okay, let's move on with that. Okay, I want to just go over a couple of things. And unfortunately, whenever I print off of the internet, I have a decent printer. It doesn't always give a complete printout. Okay, I want to give you, if you've ever invested in real estate, your broker will tell you that she can find comps for you. What is a comp? Another horrible word. It is a comparable. Well, the comparable to the Oro Grande is the Delaware Basin. Maybe you use the Midland, but using closeology, the Delaware Basin is à côté the Oro Grande. So this is from the front part of it. The top part didn't print. This is from Enervus, which is it's a research firm, but it's also a aggregator of acreage, which is for sale. And I know, well, as I've gotten older, I find that the people I knew have retired, but I know of them and some of their principals and of the companies they acquired. But anyway, here's the definition of the Delaware Basin. Located on the western section of the Permian Basin, the Delaware Basin covers 6.4 million acres, stretching from Eddy County to Pecos County and Texas. Eddy County's in New Mexico. The Delaware is the deepest of the Permian subbasins with the thickest deposits of rock. Well, actually, in some of the comparisons here, the Oro Grande has thicker potential rock. I don't know that deep is an advantage, but we'll leave it at that. So then this printout, I can't read all of this, so that's just too bad. I'll just read what I can. Production historically focused on vertical development and targeted the Wolfcamp and the Abo Yeso formations, never heard of those, in the Northwest Shelf. With the introduction of horizontal drilling, and that's the big breakthrough, interest in the Wolfcamp has been revitalized, and it has introduced the Bone Springs as the moneymaker. I have to skip some of, I can't read that, unfortunately. All right, so what is the Delaware Basin? The Delaware Basin extends from Lee and Eddy counties, New Mexico, down to Pecos County, Texas. The basin's aerial extent covers 13,000 square miles, most of which doesn't have any human beings on it. The northern end of the basin lies in New Mexico, giving it exposure to federal land, which typically carries a lower royalty, it's about 1/8, compared to private leases in Texas. The basin dips toward the Central Basin Platform. That's a higher area that separates the Delaware from Midland basins in the Permian. Structural deformation, post-deposition, and hydrocarbon generation created an inverted relationship between depth and thermal maturity in the basin compared with other unconventional plays, making the eastern side, that's not where we are, deeper and overpressured, yet oilier. They're talking about the eastern side of the Delaware. On the shallower, more thermally mature western side, oil is great in the Wolfcamp and better than most of the Permian Basin. The Delaware is heavily faulted, creating a complex network of natural fractures. Fractures are traps. Fractures cause traps, although it's nice when you have a big structure that you know contains the resource and it's not faulted. But anyway, I pretend to understand what I'm talking about. That's after 30 years of studying it, so. Creating a complex network of natural fractures, which pose, this is the problem, geologic risks. Faults also pose risks for operators. Primary targets in the basin are the organic-rich units within the Wolfcamp Bone Spring groups. Horizontal development unleashed an enormous amount of production from the basin, growing production from 80 million I think that's right, 80 million barrels of oil per day. It might mean 80,000. Yeah, 80,000 barrels of oil a day at the beginning of 2010 to over 2.1 million barrels of oil a day in production a decade later. Okay, so the basin's complexities, this is a risk. The basin's complexities have led to a wide disparity in results across the play. And that's why you have to drill. And it's driven by parent-child well interactions within and across. That means the communication, I guess, the source rock is the parent. I don't know if you can see the stack, but these are the stacks of zones and areas you can produce in Texas, the Midland, and the Delaware. I'm showing you all of this is because this is what the Oro Grande is projected to be and could be. The only way to prove this is to drill wells. Not to argue with Congress, not to go to court, not to be subject to attacks by the Twitterati, whether it's gregarious, bullying, ridiculing. You can't listen to it. All right, I'm going to skip the Midland Basin. I am going to read to you what the Central Basin Platform is. The Central Basin Platform is in many ways the backbone of the Permian Basin. On top of being a shallow carbonate structure, which divides the two sub-basins, the Delaware and the Midland, it served as the driver of Permian oil production for the most of the region's history. The platform is responsible for over 90% of the oil recovered from the Permian to date. Mainly, it's shallow. While not aerially, from the bird's eye view, not aerially extensive as the Midland or Delaware at 6,400 square miles, migrated oil from the basins upward charged the shallow carbonate reservoirs to create prolific, albeit localized, conventional fields along the platform's edges, many of which have transitioned to secondary and tertiary recovery. Primary target formations in this include the San Andres, Clear Fork, Tubb, Devonian, and Grayburg. Most operators on the central platform are small private companies. And you can see the platform, and then you see the Midland and the Delaware there. What is a stack play? I'm going to skip that. It's pretty self-explanatory. But in Texas, one of the major differences in Texas over the last decade is the Railroad Commission allowed for, it really was in the Eagle Ford, but they allowed for fracking, which I don't think that's a surprise, but they allowed through one wellbore that you could produce all the zones simultaneously. That's a huge difference. And that's flooded the United States and the world with Permian oil. It's just sucking the milkshake out of the glass more quickly. But it changes the economics of these wells. For you, that means a lot if the Oro Grande works. Okay, what are the major formations in the Permian? Let's just quickly go through this. There's the Wolfcamp Shale. The Wolfcamp Formation of the Permian Basin represents a time of rapid sediment deposition into the basin when it was at its deepest. The Wolfcamp is primarily characterized by thick, organic-rich shales with varying amounts of I can't pronounce that, siliciclastic, I guess, and carbonate influence. So silica in the formation in response to sea level fluctuations over millions of years. Whatever the Twitterati and the criminals do to destroy the per share price, this stuff formed over millions of years. In Delaware, the Wolf Camp section is over 2,000 feet thick, from the D at the base through the C, B, A, and XY at the top. Let's just stop there and see if I can... This is the Oro Grande project from the Torchlight information of 4 years ago. 134,000 acres they drilled. But listen, target bench characteristics, oil and gas confirmed. Potential from the shallow Wolf Camp. So I'm just reading to you what the Wolf Camp is like nearby. It's like, you know, getting out of bed for a dinosaur and driving down to the 7-Eleven to get a Slurpee for the distance in terms of geological comparison. Okay, so then the Wolf Camp XY, let's skip that. Let's see if they break this down. I'm going to skip all of the descriptions. The Wolf Camp A and B, C and D, they're all productive. I don't know if they're going to have the sprayberry, but look how thick the sprayberry is in the Delaware and all of the zones they can produce. Let's skip over that for time. Okay, Bone Springs. I don't see it expressed here. Okay, here. Potential reserves recovered in the Wolf Camp, Upper Penn, Barnett, and Woodford Unconventional. But I swear I heard somewhere it was in the Bone Spring. So let's look at how big the Bone Spring is. Let's just quickly see what they say. The Bone Spring play is a thick package of alternating sands, shales, and carbonate intervals, though it is primarily targeted in the Eddy and Lee counties in New Mexico. The Bone Spring formations overlie the Wolf Camp, so they're shallower. Conventional vertical drilling initiated development of these zones. However, they're now being drilled horizontally. Now, the Oro Grande goes into New Mexico. All right, they discuss emerging targets in the Permian Basin. I'll just read over it. The Alpine High, Avalon Leonard, Delaware Mountain Group, the Yeso Trend, San Andres, oil-prone Mississippian, and Devonian. The point is, the best place to locate oil is where oil has already been discovered. Look at this Winkler project. Do you see all those green dots? That's how it gets developed. And this is just on a few acres. Okay. Number of rigs as of I don't know when this is run. Anyway, recently the number of rigs running is 610. Okay, who are the operators? Who are the operators in the Delaware Basin? EOG Resources, Pioneer. Let me see what I can give you as those top two, EOG produces 288,000 barrels a day. Pioneer, 242,000. Concho, COG operating, 174,000 per day. Diamondback, 145,000. Several of these companies have been bought up recently. That's what happens as the oil story changes. XTO Energy, they bought Exxon a long time ago, product out of Texas. 113 a day. Burlington Resources, Chesapeake Operating, Marathon Oil, Occidental Permian, Encana, Apache Corp, Anadarko, Chevron, Parsley Energy, Devon Energy, Shell, Kinder Morgan, SM Energy, Endeavor Energy. Many of those have been bought out. Then they go through the counties. He was the coward of the county. Trying to see if they have our county in there. They don't. But this is about the Delaware. Then they talk about the cities. All right, that's that report. That's from Enervis. Let me just go through the title here. I can't read to you. I can't read it to you. But I think what I put in was, you know, the history of the Delaware. So let's just read some of this quickly. This is from the American Oil and Gas Reporter. And it's recent. I can't read the date on it because my printer over-copied it, but it was recent, I'd say within the last year. This is about the Delaware Basin. This is in 2022. The operators reacted quickly to the elevated oil and gas market. Private companies more than doubled their rig count. Russia's invasion of the Ukraine. Private operators. Majors, driven primarily by ExxonMobil, are actively increasing their drilling efforts. Change dynamics. The Permian Delaware play extends across Lee and Eddy counties in southeastern New Mexico and across the line into West Texas. Acreage in the western part of the Delaware, including Culberson and western Reeves County in Texas, tend to have higher gas content, which we have to get ready for. Gas right now is nearly free in Texas, but that can change. And I was talking to somebody who pointed out, and it's accurate, you can use natural gas production locally to create a utility. You can become the utility for, you know, big swaths of Texas where it's hot right now. Think air conditioning. Estimated ultimate recovery rates can be relatively high in this region. While acreage in both Texas and New Mexico is being actively developed, New Mexico has gained momentum over the past couple of years with rapidly increasing activity. Activity in this basin, the Delaware, before 2014 was primarily dominated by vertical drilling. But the share of horizontal, sorry, I better have a sip of water. The share of horizontal drilling has picked up rapidly, fueling growth. All right, the author talks about that 2 years ago, the focus was on disciplined drilling and CapEx. Previously, it was just it's a race to produce, basically, I'm summarizing. High oil prices have given the incentive to several large producers, including EOG Resources and Occidental Petroleum, do you remember the 21st day of September? The sixth largest position that Warren Buffett holds is Oxy Petroleum. The fifth largest is Chevron. So, increased activity from large producers, EOG Resources and Occidental Petroleum. But it's private companies stepped up the game, and that's where the acquisitions come. Guess what? That's what we really are. We're a private company. Couple of I guess these are private operators, Mewbourne Oil Company and Taprock Resources. We might hear those names later on in the Oro Grande, I don't know. Okay, the other thing I want to show you, I want to go through this pretty quickly because it's promotional. But this oil and gas investments bulletin, which you can Google, I got it off of Google. It's called The Last Microcap in the Delaware Basin. My last Texas oil and gas private company, I don't know if it says private, I can't tell, skyrocketed from $3 a share to $23 in 2 months. My newest one, it's in the same oil formation. The one he's talking about is Resolute. But this gets chopped off, darn it. So I'll do my best. I'm gonna skip the discussion of Resolute, but apparently that ran. It transformed, by drilling, they transformed a zombie stock headed for bankruptcy into one of the largest producers in the country. I think that's what it says. Most investors thought the stock ran up because of a short squeeze. Let me see if I can find this on my computer, and then I can just read the whole thing to you. Let's see. Sorry for my knuckles. Just shows that I'm a complete idiot. Yeah, here, I can read it to you. All right. So I printed it out, but I'll read it here on my screen. Now, this was dated, doesn't have a date. Doesn't have a date. But anyway, he's got a chart of Resolute Energy in the Delaware Basin. And after results came out, I bought the stock at $5.60 and $7. 1 month later, on August 8th, 2016, the company announced spectacular well results and the stock jumped to $16. I bought more. Many investors thought the stock ran up because of a short squeeze, but I knew the real value of Delaware Basin land. It only took 5 minutes of simple arithmetic. Then on September 1, they updated their presentation. The stock went to $24. I'm telling you this story so you understand how special the geology and the economics are for the Delaware sub-basin in the Permian Basin. And what I'm trying to show you is closeology, that nightmare word that has been invented by geologists, even ones that go to Dartmouth. It's closeology to a herd of dinosaurs that's just down the highway. So, but this story is about geology and how the Delaware Basin, this is in 2016, is now the #1 oil play in North America. What I'm suggesting to you is the Oro Grande can become that. Land values are soaring right now. I talk to management teams trying to buy land in the Delaware, and they tell me land is sometimes going up by $1,000 per acre a day. And we've got 134,000 acres. It's crazy. But it's incredibly lucrative if you already own a fat chunk of land in the middle of it. I know a company like that, but it's the only one left. This is promotional by this dude. Okay, this Delaware Basin gem is the last one. Let's just try to... It's a micro cap, but it has large cap management. That sounds like Nexbridge Hydrocarbons. Microcaps are where the huge gains are for investors willing to make the effort. This particularly Delaware gem he's talking about, which you had to pay money to get the name of, has land in the core of the Delaware Basin play, the same as Resolute, whose Resolute's share price skyrocketed on great drilling results. This is what scares the short sellers. They don't want you to move your shares because that helps Greg McCabe when he tries to raise capital. It helps Greg McCabe when he tries to negotiate. It helps Greg McCabe file his financials and know his cap table, all with the purpose of drilling 5 more wells by the end of the year. The criminals want Nexbridge to be in trouble, and that's why they talk to you on Twitter, or their representatives do. There's drilling going on all around this little gem of a company. Well, that's not true yet in the Oro Grande, but that could happen. This is a new field discovery, according to Torchlight, the largest in 30 years onshore, 35 years now. Nobody knows that this company, he's talking about the one he's promoting, exists because it's small and because it's new and because management funded a lot of it themselves. That sounds a lot like what Nexbridge is doing. I'm trying to show you that Nexbridge is valuable. But you want to hold MMTLP, which doesn't exist, or do you want to hold a real company? The only people who know about this Delaware Basin gem are my subscribers, and I think he says and me. I think it should be and I, but whatever. It's hard to know. Only the big boys own land in the super hot Delaware Basin, except for this undiscovered gem. Do you hear that? The big oil and gas companies have the Delaware Basin covered. They have the Midland covered. So we, as small guys, can own potentially. There's still risks, but we potentially are in the next place where the big boys and girls are going to come. He's put he's put a report together. So in the Delaware, why are companies paying $27,000 an acre for Delaware Basin land? Now that, that was a few years ago. I'm gonna skip some of this. At low oil prices, every single onshore oil producer is scrambling to get a piece of the Delaware Basin. They're leaving other more expensive plays, the Bakken, the Eagle Ford, the Niobrara. The reason is, at $45 a barrel, the Delaware Basin is profitable. You can, the so-called stack play, that's a similar, I forget the zones. I want to say Wolfbone, but it might be something else. The stack play in Oklahoma is the same kind of idea. But the Permian generates cash flow through all these zones. The Delaware play will steal capital and talent from all the other U.S. plays. It is a game changer. Billions of dollars will now flow to the Delaware. Well, if we have the next play, imagine it. Then he gives a description, and I can't show it to you, but he does show a chart, and it's very similar. It's more detailed than this one. But he says the Delaware Basin is part of the Permian Basin, as is the idea, the theory is, as is the Oro Grande. The Permian has always been the granddaddy of oil plays in the United States. It is so rich in oil with so many layers of productive formation. It was the last oil play to use horizontal drilling because you didn't have to do it. This is why companies are paying up to $30,000 an acre in the Delaware Basin when oil is $45 a barrel. Think of that. The boo birds on Twitter want you to think your money's been stolen. I think you stumbled onto something that can change your financial situation. Unfortunately, you have to wait. And you have to give Greg McCabe the tools to develop his asset. The exceptional economics in the Permian are driving production from the Permian upward, even at $40 oil. %50 of horizontal drilling now, 2 years ago or 3 years ago. No, sorry. This was in, I think, 2016. But 50% of the horizontals, so that would be about 8 years ago, were in the Permian Basin. It's the most valuable layer cake. I've used that analogy with you. I said wedding cake. Layer cake's a better word. It's the most valuable layer cake in the world. What makes the Delaware and Midland Basin special? Layers upon layers upon layers of oil. The Permian is the most valuable layer cake in the world. There's an incredible number of oil-bearing formations which exist on this same piece of land. Where other horizontal plays have 2 or 3 formations which could produce oil for a long time and profitably, the Permian has 9. And by some estimates, up to 12. So it's the Delaware, Avalon, first Bone Spring, second Bone Spring, third Bone Spring, Wolfcamp A through X, Y, lower Wolfcamp, Wolfcamp B, Wolfcamp D. What it means is, and this is a change now with the Railroad Commission, all these zones can be produced from the same drilling pad. They can be, he's not saying it here, but they can be produced at the same time. They all have the same infrastructure, same costs, so it's very efficient. Once those costs are paid for, it means that you pay for it with one zone and the rest of the zones get free infrastructure. All right, how did this company manage to lock down this acreage? The code to this play had not been cracked. They hadn't solved it by 2015. It wasn't that the wells coming out of the Delaware Basin weren't interesting in 2015. They just weren't exceptional. The coming out party for the Delaware Basin happened in 2016. Everyone knew that Resolute Energy had significant Delaware Basin assets. Well, just substitute, not everyone knows now, but NextBridge Hydrocarbons has significant Oro Grande Basin assets. But it wasn't until early this summer, which I assume was 2016, the way he's writing this, when the company released new drilling results that the market cared. In those results, Resolute revealed new production rates, which meant that the Delaware Basin wells would recover 50% more oil than originally expected. Imagine if the Oro Grande, imagine if NextBridge can announce, we don't know, but what if it can announce a similar technological breakthrough? This is quite a change in performance. That's why Resolute shares priced for bankruptcy at $3 for so long skyrocketed to $23 a share in 2 months. This is what scares the counterfeiters and the short sellers. That's why they come on Twitter. They don't want you to do anything because it helps them. It doesn't help you. The management team of this little company locked down the acreage in 2015 before the well results like Resolute's were publicly known and before the frenzy of Delaware Basin deals started up. All right, I might stop there because he goes on to talk about how great he was picking other stocks. The most respected oil man in the United States, the most respected horizontal oil man in the United States is Mark Papa. That is not an unofficial title. From 2000 to 2013, sorry. So 13 years, 2000 to 2013. Papa ran EOG Resources, and he did it masterfully. Under his guidance, EOG became the single largest producer of oil in the lower 48 states. Today, EOG is the leading horizontal oil producer by a significant margin. He built the horizontal play the right way, not with debt and questionable profitability, with constant focus on drilling profitable wells. He has a bunch of money. He bought a company in the Delaware Basin after he retired. All right, let's see if I can just... When does a market discover the assets in the Delaware? When they announce first drill results. When the people drilling around them are a who's who of oil and gas companies, and they announce drill wells. Any merger or acquisition. He's only going to show this report to the first 100 people. It's the last microcap in the Delaware Basin, And it's $99 for 3 months, $39 for a monthly subscription. Anyway, let's move off of that. And let me remind you, I'm gonna sign off here. Try to keep this under an hour. But let me remind you from the FINRA fact sheet dated March 16, 2003. Let me just read directly. November 23rd, 2022, Meta Materials issued an announcement regarding MMTLP corporate action, stating that each holder of MMTLP as of December 12, 2022, would become entitled to receive 1 share of common stock of NextBridge for every 1 share of MMTLP held. Meta Materials also stated that the NextBridge shares would be distributed to MMTLP shareholders on December 14, 2022, at which time all MMTLP shares would be automatically canceled. I understand they changed that wording now to deleted. But as of December 14, 2022, shares in MMTLP no longer exist. What you see in your account is just an accounting placeholder. It's an accounting record keeper. You don't own anything. And holders of MMTLP would cease to have any rights with respect to their shares as of December 14th. Now, the Twitterati are telling you, you have the same, and you're entitled, as a holder of MMTLP, you're entitled to the same rights as NextBridge shareholders. NextBridge shareholders. They're saying that I'm just trying to write this down. I heard on the call that Schwab, I think, has 12 to 13 million shares of the DTC allocated. I don't know. I gotta check this out. What was said on the call, I think, is Schwab has 4.5% of the DTC, the real shares, but in their system is 23%. In other words, they have 4.5% of NextBridge, but they in their books, they have enough to be 23%. That's not a good position. But apparently TD Ameritrade has 54 million shares. Fidelity has 21 million shares. So just from those 3 companies, if my notes are right, you've got 90 million shares of the real stock claimed by 3 companies in people's accounts. That's trouble. That means in all likelihood, you don't own anything. But that's where you want to be, I guess. So I want to read that. I'll just read the one update rather than the first one. On February 16, NextBridge Hydrocarbons put this out. They said they're providing today an update in connection with the spinoff on September 14, 2022 from Meta Materials. Immediately after the spinoff, NextBridge became an independent reporting company, and the common stock is not and will not be publicly traded and will not be eligible through electronic transfer at the depository trust. Meta distributed 165,472,241 of the outstanding shares of NextBridge common stock on a pro rata basis to holders of MMTLP. Each MMTLP entitled you to receive 1 share of NextBridge. So the argument that the Twitterati are trying to get you to believe, just stay where you are. Stay where you are. Stay in the fake MMTLP, the counterfeit MMTLP, because you're entitled to the same payout. This is a manipulation of words. It's a manipulation of your brain and your emotions. It's true. Hey, it's in writing. Well, it is in writing. Let me read it again. Each share of MMTLP as held as of December 12, 2022, the record date, entitled its holder to receive 1 share of the company's common stock. Here's the problem. What the Twitter people don't do, and it's up to you, you can listen to them. I'm sure they have your best interest at heart. Yeah, I'll save most of my arguments for it because now it's at an hour. So let me show this to you. The strongest rumor I've heard is there's over 600 million shares of MMTLP in brokerage, your account in brokerage accounts. Some brokers listed as MMTLP, some brokers listed as NextBridge. They have what they call a CUSIP number, but remember, that's just an accounting entry to keep track of their liability to you. Now, the argument from the Twitterati geniuses is that you are entitled. You don't have to move your shares. You're entitled to NextBridge hydrocarbons. You're entitled. So sit on your ass and do nothing. But let me look at this. Let's look at this. There's 165,400,000 real shares. There's 600 million fake shares. So if you're entitled to receive 1 share of NextBridge, wouldn't it make sense to you to go get your entitlement while it's available before another person claims it? Right now, you can go get your entitlement essentially for free. Cost of $80. You don't have to hire an attorney. You don't have to file a class action. You don't have to walk the halls of Congress. I'm not telling you not to do that. You don't have to write congressmen and journalists, which I'm glad I intended to keep doing that. But in order to collect your asset, your entitlement, the door is wide open. You don't have to do anything. As soon as those 165,500,000 shares are spoken for, your only choice is to going to get your entitlement, and this is what the boo birds want, through duking it out with high-priced lobbyists, high-priced attorneys, and you can't afford an equivalent. So you know, the other argument I heard, which is just sheer childishness, is I'm going to wait until the airliner fills up or the bus fills up. Then the brokerage firm is going to owe me a lot of money. Because if I transfer my shares, then I'm letting my brokerage firm off the hook. Well, let me just ask you. I don't think that was a bad idea early on. We went to Gary Gensler. He denied knowing anything about it in front of Congress. And then, of course, he blabbed onward to show how smart he was. It sounded like he knew, but he denied it. You have worked so hard to write letters and Twitter, and you've got RFK involved, and Trump maybe, and you know, the attorneys generals around the country. This is really powerful, but the question is, what is that return, and when? And then the question is, do you really believe that an accounting book entry is going to be more valuable than the equivalent value of the real shares? All right, I guess I might leave it there, but I want to tell you, if I can find it. There's an entry. No. It's on Equinity's. If you go to, it's on the website of NextBridge. If you go to the frequently asked questions, I didn't print it out, but and maybe there's a new story, but let me just tell you what it says. You can look it up. It says it's the responsibility of the shareholder to ask for the broker to transfer your shares to the transfer agent. So if your argument is that your broker should have automatically done it, well, at the time, I think that was a good, honorable assumption. Since then, it's been put out to everyone that it's your responsibility to initiate the transfer. So if you want to listen to the argument that if you own NextBridge, you're entitled to NextBridge, obviously. But if you own MMTLP, you're entitled to NextBridge. Then you're listening to a liar. Because he's not going on to tell you what is that entitlement worth. If you own the real shares of NextBridge, you have a piece of a company which might be in the next exciting acreage rush in the United States, but they have to drill wells and have results. Maybe they get a joint venture partnership. They're going to have to raise money to do it. And the company's going to move forward. They're not waiting around for Congress or the Twitterati. That's not in an oil man's blood. An oil man's blood is let's produce. So anyway, if you think the best way to secure your financial return on this investment is to hold fake, non-existent accounting entries in your brokerage firm, and that you are entitled to shares of NextBridge, after the door closes on the bus, after the gate closes to get into the airliner, you're just going to be standing in line to beg, plead, cry, get angry, ask them if they know who you are, tell them you have to be home because your daughter's getting married. You're just going to be arguing with an overtaxed clerk at the gate. And you may or may not get $1,000 a ticket. You may or may not get a free hotel room. You may or may not get a free round-trip ticket. You're going to get whatever they offer because you don't have the money to fight the system. So you're going to get whatever is negotiated. I believe it should be a high number. But I've got to emphasize with you all, and one of the Twitter rotties came on and attacked me. I said that in a short squeeze, MMTLP could go over $1,000. Well, in the data provided in the lawsuit, the intercoastal lawsuit, waterways lawsuit, footnote 7, apparently there were trades that occurred at 2,400. They were reversed, 2,400 a share. So I wasn't wrong. It looks like everything is hidden behind a veil. But now, and then I had huge, and I still believe that if Greg McCabe were to organize a settlement across the conference table that involved all parties, it would be a high number, and he could skip doing a private offering or skip going through Roth Capital and just be the superbly funded independent oil company. But you know, there's time. Time's gone by. There's lawsuits. There's lawyers involved. There's financial accounting. There's lease deadlines. And there's competition. So at some point, you just have to say, let's get this herd moving to Abilene or moving to Kansas City. We're not waiting another day. We're not waiting for rain. We're going to get our beef to Kansas City so we can sell it. Come Hades or high water. Let's just get going. And that's what's going to happen here with NextBridge. They're going to move forward. And as I did the examination of Oxy Petroleum with 4 billion barrels, it's currently valued at 55 billion market cap. I mean, that's a pretty good place to start. If NextBridge can be parsimonious with its allocation of shares as it grows, maybe they can do a JV, maybe they can do debt financing, but you got to drill. You got to get results to do that. So maybe they can keep their issuance under $500 million, which would be lovely. That would be lovely. Right now, they're at 250 million shares outstanding. I wanted to keep this short. Let me just look something up on the NextBridge website. I only want to talk about anything that is press released when I'm okay. So right now I'm not going to mention what I was going to mention. I'll try to back it up with data elsewhere. I don't have time to look for it right now. But my point is, NextBridge is going to have to raise money. What price do they raise money at? It could be anything. I've raised money for oil and gas companies for 25 years, 30 years. And sometimes you do deals inexpensively. Sometimes without realizing it, looking back, you're doing deals with the criminals inexpensively. Sometimes you help the criminals out by destroying your own denominator, your own amount of shares outstanding. I don't think that'll happen here in NextBridge, but look at MMAT and MULN. as examples. I'll have to expand my list of examples because I don't want to keep picking on the same companies. So if they stay, let's just say the maximum they do is 500 million shares, using Oxy as a analog, it's $100 stock. It's $100 stock. With success, with drilling. So what does that mean to your shares? I don't know how many shares you own, but I know for me, I would rather own real shares that are entitled to a dividend from operations, that are entitled, NextBridge only has an obligation to its shareholders. That's it. And I'd rather own that real item than listen to the misleaders and the liars and the prevaricators who are trying to get you to do nothing. The fact that MMTLP entitles you to 1 share of NextBridge, that expired on December 12th. Now your negotiation is with your broker, because MMAT distributed 165 million of the shares. So where are those shares? They're in my case, they're in my name. But in your case, your shares are held at Fidelity. Fidelity has, I wrote it down here. I don't know if this is true, but Fidelity, I heard it on a space call. Fidelity has 4.5% of that 165 million shares. But they have in their system, apparently, speculation, they have 23% of that 165 million. So why would you sit and turn your ticket to get on the plane, get on the bus, into arguing whether or not you get a free hotel room and a free breakfast and maybe a free ticket that expires after a year? Worthless. What if they give you free trading in your account for 2 years and it has no value to you? But that's what lawyers can settle for. So anyway, look, I'm going to tell you something that I have heard many times. I've heard it over a year ago, and I don't talk about it. And it's speculation. I cannot prove it. But it is my understanding that at least one person who is involved in the fight, so-called fight, for this MMTLP community and on Twitter, at least one person apparently has a bonus he or she can collect of $1 million if they get MMTLP to trade again. You'll get nothing. My whole point is, you cannot trust anyone. Don't trust me. I will tell you, I'm not being paid by anyone to put this out there. I have a paltry position, and my situation is not going to change whether or not you move your shares or not. But I want you to know that the criminals are caught, and they're in trouble, and they will do anything to get you to sit on your thumbs. Don't sit on your thumbs. Move it. Move your butt. Move your shares over to the transfer agent. Now, let me tell you a couple things realistically. The criminals want NextBridge to be worthless. They want NextBridge to have to lose their acreage, and then the company's bankrupt. And I've read to you in a different video that makes their goal. They tell you that no judge will make them cover their short position. This is their strategy. And they will pay, I'm surprised the bounty's only $1 million. I would imagine they'd pay 10 million or 100 million to a group of people to save them hundreds of billions of dollars and to save them visibility that this problem exists and to save that they can do future thieving and they stay out of jail, prison. So listen to who you listen to very carefully and analyze their words. Oh, you are entitled. Yes, okay, I'm entitled. How am I going to get it? I'm standing at the gate. United just kicked me off of my flight from New York to Midland, Texas. And there are no more flights tonight. They oversold my flight by 5 or 6 or 7 times. United would go bankrupt if they gave each of us a hotel room and a round-trip ticket to anywhere their system flies and a cash bonus to keep us from being angry and writing our congressman. United go out of business. So you have to ask yourself, is United going to give you recompense that's equivalent to your entitlement? And that's what the liars are trying to confuse you with. The other lie they say is, what if MMTLP starts trading? Let me flip that on its head. I hope this does not happen. Oh my gosh, I think it would be a mistake. But what if NextBridge starts trading? I hope the hell it never does. As long as these criminals out there, they will leverage their attacks, and I don't think any size company can withstand it. Unless they have operational results, unless they can buy back shares. But what if NextBridge started trading? What do you have with MMTLP? Nothing. Nothing. What if NextBridge, lo and behold, had a short squeeze? I'm not predicting it. I do not want NextBridge to trade. What do you have with MMTLP? MMTLP's not going to trade. So what is the motive to get you to stay in a fake share? Is it a bounty that they earn and you don't? I don't know. It's really bad advice. Let me just ask you now. Let me ask you another thing. What if NextBridge raises money and flips some of its Louisiana prospects for a profit, or flips non-core assets for cash, and maybe has a producer that's massive somewhere else? Let me just ask you this. I'm flipping the story. What if NextBridge pays a dividend to NextBridge shareholders? Just to kind of, hey, thanks for being a shareholder. What if they make it a special dividend and they announce an annual dividend? Quarterly, you know, one they can pay. I don't think they should do this quickly. I think they should devote money to drilling. But hey, if they have enough money for their CapEx plan next year and this year, and there's excess, what if they do that? Let me ask you something. Who does Greg McCabe owe that distribution to? Let's use a real number. Let's say that he announces he's going to distribute that'd be a lot of money. Let's just say he announces he's going to distribute $1 a share. It's 165 million. I'm making it up. If he had 165 million, he should drill wells. But let's just say that. Who does he owe it to? He owes it to NextBridge. He owes it to the people on the bus. He owes it to the people on the airliner. He doesn't owe it to the people waiting in the lobby screaming at the overworked clerk. That's an issue with United Airlines. It's not an issue with the captain on the plane. It's a bad analogy. Let's assume that flight to Midland was operated by United, but the underlining holder was Eagle. Eagle doesn't owe you anything. Eagle just owes getting that plane load there. The United owes the rest. Fidelity owes the rest in their situation. But all Greg McCabe owes is what he's promised to shareholders. Let me ask you something else now that I'm talking. I wish I had a computer where I could chop this stuff up, but I'm sorry I don't. What if Greg McCabe were to do a tender offer and do it as a Dutch auction? And he announced that he was going to spend let's say he's going to spend $90 million to buy back shares. In other words, it would represent 50 cents a share if everyone sold. But what if he did it as a Dutch auction? So it's up to you to send in, and he had a range from 50 cents to as high as he's willing to pay, as high as $25 a share in this tender offer. So he puts this through the SEC. It has to be approved. And you've seen how long the SEC takes to approve things. It has to be announced to everyone. It's not going to happen quickly. Shareholders of NextBridge have the option of checking out, returning to NextBridge. In my case, let's just say I only want to sell 1,000 shares of my position, and I'm willing to sell 1,000 at the high end of the range. I put in that I'll sell 1,000 at $25. There might be others out there of you that, as I hear over and over again, I just want my money back. I don't want to listen that there's upside. I just want my money back. I was robbed. Okay. Well, if you own NextBridge shares, I'm just using one of my certificates. I would, I wouldn't do this, but I'll sell 1,264 shares, my entire, this certificate. Instead of 50 cents, I'll put in at my cost, $7.96 a share, if that's an option. If they give specific option, maybe I'll put it in at $8.25. Let's say I'll put it in at $8.25. So then NextBridge goes through their whole list of people that came in that with their offers. They have $80 million to spend, or 90, I forget what I said, in buying back. Conceptually, if you take the median between 50 cents and $25, conceptually, they'll end up paying an average of $12 or $13 a share. I mean, it'll just depend on how people's numbers come in. But again, I ask you, I'm flipping the question. Who does Greg McCabe owe that average of $12.50 a share to? Real shareholders of NextBridge. Real shareholders of NextBridge. And that's a more likely, and that is probably something that could happen more quickly than anything that's going to happen with Congress, brokerage firms, etc. Unless Greg McCabe wants to organize a giant settlement. But that requires willingness on the part of every party involved. He has to get down the road to drilling. And he might want to simplify his cap base and buy back shares so that he can then issue those later on. He might, anyway, so my question is, why would you be an MMTLP, which is just an accounting entry to record the liability Fidelity, Schwab, TD, well, TD Ameritrade is the same, you know, Morgan Stanley has toward you? I don't know. And then if you want to take it one step further and say, well, this could cause a short squeeze if NextBridge is trading. Well, it could. But if you own MMTLP, there's no judge who's going to be sympathetic that your little electronic placeholder that's an accounting entry deserves to get what real shares got in a short squeeze. I am 100% against NextBridge ever trading because I think the criminals have methodologies to destroy the share price. Look, once it's fully funded, if NextBridge is fully funded and has a joint venture partner and has its CapEx delineated for the next 5 years, I'm making it up, yeah, start trading. The only companies who should trade on the U.S. markets under the flaccid leadership of Gary Gensler, hey, look at me, I'm a woman and I'm disinterested in my job leadership of Adina Friedman, the timid, oversized non-leadership at a immune to lawsuits, SRO, called FINRA, Robert Cook, and then just a laughing clown at the over-the-counter markets, Crowell, C.W. Cheatham Crowell. They don't care. They're not going to support you in that. They're not going to support you in that. The best way to get a chance at anything is to own the real shares. It's the best way. So anyway, I'm going to leave it there. I strongly recommend, although it's not legal advice, it's not financial advice, I strongly recommend that all good things that could happen to you by the Oro Grande becoming an analog or a comp to the Delaware Basin, all good things are going to happen in NextBridge shares. And you won't miss out on lawsuits. Nothing good's going to happen to you in comparison to NextBridge in MMTLP. And as a bonus, if we can fill up the airliner, if we can fill up the bus, we help Greg McCabe raise money, know his cap table, and drill wells. The only way to prove this up is to drill wells. So with that, I wish you a happy, hot, humid June 22nd. And I thank all of you for listening. I thank all of you for working so hard. I'm just in absolute awe. I stand 100% with the hard work of everyone, with Congress, politicians, journalists, everyone. And lawyers. I stand with it, and I will not quit. But I also think we just have a gift here that until the gate is closed on the jumbo jet, or until the door is closed on the Greyhound bus, get on board. pay the $80 for FedEx and get on board. With that, I'm going to say good afternoon. Cheers.